welcoming all to the 19th HRAWI Regional Convention spread across 3 days, that's from the 7th of October to the 9th of October 2022. Welcome to Nashik. Welcome to the city of grapes. Welcome to the city of abundance. Welcome to the city of blessings. The wine capital of our country, Nashik. Welcome to the smart city, Nashik. And most of all, welcome to my city, that's Nashik. Yeah, I was expecting that. Thank you so much. Wondering who I am? Yes, of course. I am your MC for the business session spread over 2 days. I have the privilege of introducing myself. I am Dr. Nirmala Kotnis, a former India international badminton player having 22 national titles, a Commonwealth silver, an Asian Games bronze, the only Indian expert right from Olympics to your World Championship to the leagues that's happening in badminton now with Star Sports and Viacom. That's me. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. It really makes me a confirmation that where we saw in the inauguration, Padma Shri Dilip Venksatkar, sports person, me, sports person. Yes, sports persons are in demand with all the fraternities, and why not? Because we are the strongest people walking on planet Earth. The people with the most resistance power to bounce back in any circumstance or situation. Like when I heard yesterday one of the dignitaries saying that when we battled 2 years with a lot of uncertainties and insecurities, going online sessions, yes, the sports fraternity also did that. The sports people also were training for last 2 years online. Isn't that difficult when we cannot breathe the open arenas? But when India came back after 2 years, we came back with power and we showed the world that we are one of the global superpowers with sweeping 21 gold, that's a total of 61 medals at the Commonwealth, and getting back the Thomas Cup, which would only dream by the World Federation of Badminton. And India got it back after 75 years. That's after the 2 years that we battled COVID. So, we are here to win, and that is what the tagline of this convention is. We are here to win. Just touching one more 2 years, I really don't want to dwell into the past, yes. But, this 2 years has been really brutally cruel. Every fraternity was thinking what to do, individuals having their own fights, own battles. Fighting battles means just showing courage. There are lots of community helpers who sacrifice their lives, in order to save the lives of others. That's called the biggest sacrifice in the life. But these two attributes are connected with the color saffron or kesariya. That's what we call in India. And that's what adorning everybody's neck today. The kesariya, the saffron, the lanyards, which are being sponsored by Rev Marito. I have to thank Rev Marito for giving that color to ours and making it the best convention with courage and sacrifice as most of these two attributes connected to this convention. Going ahead, now that we have some business to do and we have to get back on the lost time. So the first and the foremost pillar that we need in order to run any business is the HR, the human resources. And that's why we've got it on our very first topic of today's business session, the human resources. That's revolving doors to opening human doors. For this, I invite on stage Mr. Kamlesh Barot, former President, FHRAI and HRAWI, a visionary with this mission intact, who is in hospitality and operation business in 1973, a person who's tech-enabled smart and whose designs have brought many process advantages to the followers. He is the moderator for today's session, Mr. Kamlesh Barot. We have 3 speakers for today's first business session. I invite Mr. Natwar Nagar, founder and CEO, the People Network, founder, the Job Plus, an enriching understanding of executive search and HR consulting, long-standing relationships in the industry knowledge, and his commitment to excel has made him a preferred partner of choice. Thank you, sir. Next we have Mr. Riyan Bhatia, Enterprise Accountant Director, LinkedIn, Mumbai. A person who advises some of our country's largest organizations on their talent strategies. Unfortunately, due to some unforeseen circumstances, he cannot be here today in person, but he's taken aid of Zoom. That's what we all tried on last 2 years. So he's going to be here with us on Zoom. And the third speaker for this session is Mr. Yogendra Agnihotri, Senior Director HR South Asia at Radisson Hotel Group, associated with this group for last 10 years. But his 20 long years of work experience, he is responsible for talent capital for RHG's 108 operating hotels in South Asia, impacting over 14,000 employees globally. That's your eminent panel for the first business session, and that's Mr. Riyan Bhatia on Zoom. I hand over the stage to the eminent speakers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Good morning, friends. This brings us to the first session of business that we have. I have three eminent speakers with me on the panel. We are cutting out the protocol of introducing them, which Ms. Courtness has already done. We starting the session right away, and the first thoughts that came to my mind was, why did Riyan not join us? And yesterday when the committee told me that Riyan is not coming, one shocker was I had actually forced down these three gentlemen to have 3 virtual meetings before starting this seminar on various subjects and topics and brainstorming and editing and everything which was done pre this seminar. And I thought I scared away Riyan to say not one more in this drilling session, but then I came to know it wasn't because of my rigorous sessions that he was opting out, but for other reasons. So good for us. What we've done is, between us, we've taken 3 buckets. The first one is on attraction, the second one is on retention, and the third one is on development. For HR, usually you have 15-20 minutes of speech from the moderator, which is an absolute bore. Nobody wants to hear the moderator because such wonderful people are there on the panel to speak. So neither am I going to speak anything for the first 10-15 minutes, nor the speakers are going to talk anything. We're straight away starting with the points. And we have actually framed the entire session in such a way that one topic has been assigned to one speaker. So we're not doing one topic and then all the 3 speakers try to give their opinion about it. Though, gentlemen, you are always welcome to add on a point that you would want to add to the thing. So right away, the first point that we have on the first bucket of attracting talent, attracting the human resource, is skill-specific courses. And this question is targeted to Mr. Yogendra and Mr. Natwar both. Please.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And before I straight away get into the specific answer to this question, I would like to set the context so that you really see this question and all the upcoming questions in the right context. So the context is that we are really facing an immense talent crunch overall in the industry. If you look at India, if you look at Radisson, or if you look at globally, the hospitality industry is really facing an immense talent crunch. This last 2 years have been really very, very difficult for all of us, as we understand. And this talent crunch, this gap has further kind of expanded. So, that is really very, very concerning, and I'm really glad that we are starting this session, the conclave, with this very important topic, because people are the core of our business, right? So if we have to grow further, we have to grow people, we have to look for the right talent at the right place. We actually overall, if you look at the industry is growing at a very fast speed now. If you recently, I read an article from WTTC as well, wherein they are talking about more than 126 million new job opportunities in next 10 years. At Radisson, we are growing at a very fast pace. We are actually opening one hotel every 30 days, and this will really continue for next 5 years for sure. And we are actually creating 6,000 to 8,000 more job opportunities only in India. So that's the overall context. So if you have to look at if you have to look at the future, I think talent becomes really critical, and specifically on this regard, skilling becomes very, very important for us. There are hotel schools which are really creating talent for us, but we all know more than 80% of this talent is not joining us, right? There are other opportunities available for the talent. So it's important that we create some short-term, some focused, functional skilling programs, and in fact, National Skill Development Corporation, Tourism and Hospitality Skill Council are doing immense work on that. So that's really critical for our talent management concern, which all of us have. We need to create an alternate options of skilling. And in fact, my friend Natwar here, he's actually very deeply involved in this initiative, and probably I'll ask him to add to it as well.
I'll come straight to the discussion point. So I run two companies. One is People Network, which is basically into leadership hiring for the hospitality and other related sector. And very recently, we have launched a new company called the Job Plus, which is India's first skill-based, I would say, what we're trying to do is a service hospitality platform for the hospitality sector. What we are trying to achieve is something absolutely transformational, and would like to be called as disruptors in the space. We have started two programs, one with the Tourism Skill Council of India, under the aegis of called the Plus Initiative, where we are reaching out with their 360 partners across villages and communities and attracting talent at the local level. And I was just talking to Subin, and I said, I think so it's the industry has invested a lot of money in marketing, technology, and other areas, but we have not given back to the human capital. And I think so it's very important for all of us. I love my industry, and I think so we are sitting on the golden period right now. So the idea is to basically selflessly educate 10 kids under a skill-based program which could be bespoke, curated to your brand standards. We will mobilize a workforce with you. You will train them. So it's retention, training, and deployment at the grassroots level. So we have 1,400 branded hotels, 10 kids per hotel. We're talking about 15,000 new skill coming to your business. And you multiply into 3 years, you are creating a next level of pipeline. And mind you, these kids are skilled, they are assessed, they are trained on the job rather than doing 2 years and 4 years. The kids who are there in the higher education will go and do more strategic work in terms of the organizations. I'm also very pleased to announce that we are announcing very shortly and very soon a tie-up with one of the world's largest edtech company in the education business, where we will be curating courses specific to our industry in 6 months. So it will be a 3 months online course and a 3 months OJT. We expect that we should be able to churn anything between 15 to 20,000 kids in the next 3 years. So that's the initiative of the Job Plus. And as what the industry is facing right now is that we ignored them, we did not invest back. So whatever has happened, we are not going back to the board. We need to reset, rethink in a new way of creating greater employment opportunities. And I would respect, because all industry leaders are here, we need to respect our people. We need to give them reskilling. And I think there are so many other things which we can talk about, and I'll leave it to Kamlesh to come to the next topic.
On the skill courses, I think we have about 3 principals in the audience from various colleges. And ourselves at the FHRAI, we have our own institute in Noida, which we're running as the FHRAI IHM. We have been facing this as hoteliers, our members from the association, that when the kids come in as management trainees or wherever they come out of the catering college, usually the HOD at the level says, no, he's not ready for our industry and the curriculum is too outdated and what they've been teaching in the colleges is something which is very basic and elementary and theoretical. They have to get everything back on, spot on. But the challenge that lies in the curriculum is with the National Council, at least about 26 colleges at the central and about 30 odd colleges which are food craft institutes. The FHRAI had a tough task with the National Council to upgrade their syllabus to something which is more relevant, something which is more current with the industry. And YCMOU, today we're going on record on YouTube and Facebook, post the entire recording of the session. There is a bottleneck. The syllabus is about 5 to 7 years old that is being taught in all these catering colleges. So God alone knows after 3 years when a student comes out, what sort of curriculum he's ready with. And therefore that leads me to the next point where the age-old method of poaching and most of the HR managers, general managers, owners even at an extent, and that happened to us in our previous convention in Lavasa, a very established hotelier, was caught exchanging his card with the chef and saying, you're working here, why don't you come and join me? So a chain, if that can do such a kind of thing in a convention like this where it's networking and it results in poaching, how do we make sure that the industry is today ready with the curriculum that the catering college makes it relevant for them? Mr. Yogendra.
So let me just add, and I'm very proud to say that we are training and changing the livelihoods of 500 kids in the next 3 months. So our programs are being curated for the specific need of the organization. We are not looking to teach a kid 8 course French cuisine. I am not interested. And some of the top brands in the country, okay, are participating in this unique initiative. So we've got Marriott, we've got Radisson, Zubin is here, thank you Zubin. We have got Accor, we've got Mahindras, we've got Ogras talking to us. And if there is a will, there is a way. I personally feel. So I'm a born optimistic, and I think so India is standing on a golden stage. In our prediction, we are looking at about 31 million jobs in the next 7 years. And I'm not taking into account our industry. Anything related to the service sector is looking at our kids.
Perfect. Rian, you want to come in with the employer branding? What is employer branding in today's times? You'll have to unmute. Mr. Jagta, if you will read the audio.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, fantastic. So with employer branding, it's something that we do a lot at LinkedIn, and I find it very interesting to note that when I speak with clients, they typically have a very strong sales organization and a very strong marketing organization, but oftentimes marketing and HR do not speak to each other. I think it's especially interesting for the hospitality space because people are sort of centered to your business. And I find that organizations that even if you look at someone like Google or Facebook, sort of large tech companies, you'll often see that even today, they're advertising and saying, come and join us. Come and join us because we have XYZ on offer. There's no reason for organizations like that to sort of do employer branding, right? I find it very interesting with the work that I do, and when I meet clients often, HR is typically something that says, okay, we need to hire people, let's either go to say a vendor or let's just sort of put up a job post or just sort of attract people. But hiring actually and employer branding starts when you sort of promote your brand and tell candidates who you are. I'll give you a quick example of what I talk to my clients about. Typically, say for example, you're going on a vacation. The first thing you do is you go on sort of Make My Trip or whatever website, you do some research about the place you're going to, right? So you're looking at what is on offer. Candidates today do the same thing. Oftentimes they would use portals like Google, like LinkedIn, like other portals available to understand why you should join the organization. Interestingly, today I have noticed that the power actually lies more with the candidate and less with the employer. Today, people that are well educated have multiple offers in their hand, right? So it's the onus is now on the employer to convince sort of a potential candidate why they should join their organization. So from that perspective, I think it's extremely important for the HR organization to be talking to the marketing organization. Whatever skills your marketing team has in terms of promoting the company and the brand and why customers should come and stay at your hotels, that same lens should be applied to HR marketing, because then people will get excited about the hospitality industry, they will get excited about why they should work at sort of XYZ hotel or restaurant, etc. And it sort of then just becomes sort of this vicious cycle. And I've seen the best companies in the world today are the ones that would spend a lot of time and a lot of emphasis on employer branding, for the reasons mentioned above. Yeah.
So taking from the branding, Mr. Yogendra, what happens is the attraction of new talent has a source coming in from the catering colleges. And most of the students that are coming at internship levels for the 6 months, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever they're coming to the properties for, they usually are given menial work like you keep cutting onions for the whole day. The kids come and tell us, I was made to do banquet busing for 3 months and there was no training program. And besides the chains having a structured way of training the interns, the standalone restaurants or even a standalone property or hotel might not have the wherewithal of creating this entire structure. And the second problem that comes about is every management training student or whoever is coming out after the course of a degree or a diploma or whatever, he wants his CV to have a 5-star on his CV, and he makes sure that he doesn't go to the campus interviews for restaurants and single property owners. So how do we overcome as owners and property members of the association this?
Yeah. So I personally feel it's very important to treat our interns and our trainees in a right way when they are first. That's their first exposure to the real industry, right? Sometimes, and you do very short-term kind of an approach, we start dealing with our future hoteliers in a very, we start treating them as cheap laborers, honestly. And sometimes we start giving them very, very menial tasks. I'm not saying that cutting onions is not important, it is important, but not at the cost of only cutting onions, right? It has to be structured in such a way that you're giving them the right exposure, you're creating a complete kind of a training structure, because today's kids are wanting to learn more, and they are agile to learn more. We need to create that kind of overall learning structure during be it internship, be it management training program, because that's the first exposure, and that's where our kids decide whether they want to work in hospitality or not. And I think that is one of the key reasons why we are not seeing too many pass-outs from hotel schools not joining the industry. So that actually starts from there. How we treat our people, what kind of respect do we provide to them, what kind of work environment do we provide to them. I think all this matters, and this becomes really a decision point for our kids to join the industry. So I think, be it a 5-star hotel or be it any opportunity of giving that learning exposure to the kids, it has to be well structured and it has to be well communicated in terms of what is the expectation.
And the second point was about this 5-star stigma that one wants on the CV. Any of you would like to say, because this link is going to go to the catering college students all over the country, and they probably need to understand that first-hand level, if they're on the 4th level of the hierarchy in a property versus they're facing the customer in a standalone, should they bother about their CV carrying in a 5-star?
So my take is very simple. The new kids on the block are not looking for anything like this. They're looking for organization, they are looking for a mentor, they are looking for training themselves to earn more. And let me just share this with everybody here. Permanency of employment is no longer a guarantee by an organization to attract a kid. We've done a case study with Mahindra's. They're coming out with a new hotel where they have put 30% of their jobs under the manning, which would be revolving jobs, where kids could come and work for 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. So I'm saying India is changing. India is changing very fast. 5-star hotels are no longer an attraction for the kid. No brand is an attraction to the kid. It's the value and the respect which you will be given in a Starbucks, or it is in Radisson, they will choose. So you are not deciding their fate, they're deciding their own fate.
Another issue which we have with these new entrants into the industry is they probably want to have a job near their house. So when we say, okay, campus interviews, we are not allowing the call centers to come in and the malls to come in. The specific industry, hospitality should be there in the campus to take these students in. The flip side of this is the student says, oh, this property, no, it's too far from my house. Now, how do we assess, bring the property to a residence of the student? So for us, what really matters is how does the gig employees today get into this industry so easily, but a structured property tries to tackle and the attraction that is available for the students is something which is taking away about 75% of the students that are groomed by these colleges. So where does the source lie? Rian, if you can tell us this point about alternative sources of recruitment.
Hi, so I was just thinking about a couple of points that I'd like to add to what you folks were speaking about. I was looking through some of LinkedIn's data, and I actually noticed that over the last 12 months, the hospitality industry specifically has actually lost more talent to the real estate and the IT sectors than they have gained from the real estate and the IT sectors. So that was an interesting point that I wanted to bring up in today's discussion. And the other thing, sorry, I think I have
Your audio is gone off. Could you bring in the audio back, please? I guess in that time we just put this, the recruiter appointment, there are certain pros and cons that we need to address, Mr. Yogendra. What are those pros and cons that the recruiter should be keeping in mind when he's attracting talent into this hospitality industry?
I think as the overall dynamics have changed, right? So as we say, we recruit for attitude and train for skills. I think that's very, very important in our industry, and it's more evident now because you hardly have talent to hire from that kind of traditional backgrounds of education and skill set. So it's important to look at alternate options. Skilling from local community is one area where probably it's working well. Second is also looking at the way we are using our talent to other industries, right? We can also look at a similar talent which can work for us. However, there are three basic fundamental issues which we need to change in our industry to be better, attracting better talent for future. One is definitely the larger concern is the salary structure. We really need to bring the salary level of our employees to a commensurate level. We are actually by far one of the lowest paid industry, especially at a junior level, at a rank and file level. And that's where we are actually losing a lot of talent to outside other industries. Second important thing is we talk about work-life balance as the great need for today's generation. Our hotels are actually still doing split shifts, right? So we are far away from what kind of work culture we need to create and what kind of attraction for job we need to create in our industry. I think we need to look at possible ways of creating this work-life balance. I know our industry is not very, it's not easy in our industry to have that kind of a possibility, but still we have to look at wherever possible, be it heart of the house areas, be it other functions like revenue management, like marketing. Can we really look at some kind of a work-life balance structure there? And third important thing is, where I feel we are still we are far behind, is the overall, the empowerment and freedom to work for the new generation. I think that's an area which really needs a lot of attention and focus overall, because that's an area which all other industries do and perform much better at a much better level. So I feel these are the fundamental key issues which needs to be addressed to become a better, so that our industry becomes a great industry to attract great talent.
So is the power shifting from us employers to employees?
Oh yes, absolutely. The tables have turned, unfortunately, but that's the fact. Employees are making decisions now where to work and what, how to decide their career. Gone are the days where for one single position we used to have 100 competent, talented people, applying for a job. It's no more the game. The employees are really taking the decisions.
And especially after the pandemic.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So we've taken up the first issue about trying to finish off the attraction bit. The next 15 minutes we'll spend on probably the retention, and the last 15 for the development. So for us, the retention bucket holds on one key aspect about the mental health, and as Mr. Yogendra mentioned about the work-life balance. Rian, what does this mental health mean for HR?
Yeah, I think mental health and work-life balance sort of work hand in hand. Essentially, if you're happy at home and you're happy at your job, then generally your mental health is in a good place, right? Of course, from what I've heard in the hospitality industry, it is in person. You tend to spend sort of right from the morning all the way to the late evening. In fact, my father grew up and worked in the hotels all his career. He told me, you should study there. He never saw the sunset. So he'd wake up in the morning, he'd go and would see sunset. So the hours were extremely long. I'm not sure if that's still the case. But I think generally, that's the crux of it, right? And I think one thing that to think about is hotels in general are obsessed with customer service, right? They're obsessed with your customers. Customer is always right. It's all stay in hotels and the service is exemplary, whatever. Now, can you take that lens and shift that to the employee? Can you sort of be obsessed with saying that my employee is part of my family, part of my hotel, and I want to ensure that they're extremely happy? Because if they're extremely happy and they're extremely satisfied, then they're going to sort of be happy, and that's going to sort of turn into even better customer service. So that's the link to mental health that I noticed.
So anything that probably brings the focus of the HR on empathy, Mr. Nagar?
I think so, and I did stated this in one of the earlier conferences at the OBS. We have treated our people extremely badly. Okay, it started from the day training. I was absolutely aghast when I came to know industry trainees paid about 4,000 to 5,000 rupees, working for 14 hours, which is less than bloody 30 bucks a day. So you've basically ripped his soul there. Okay. I think there are modern organizations which are now trying to cultivate a very strong employee engagement program. And I'll give you a standard example of how difference can be. I was having a drink last evening in one of the restaurants of Radisson. There were 3 kids, and Akshay was there with me. There were 3 kids who came to us at 3 different moments. They were extremely engaged, extremely nice. The quality of the service was absolutely unbelievable. And I asked him, I said, why do you do it? He says, we genuinely like our work. So I complimented Yogendra and I said, that's the service culture what we're looking at. So it's a two-way process. If you treat your people well, and it starts from the foundation when they're entering into your organization. All the onboarding exercises, all the industrial training programs are very shabbily done. They do not get a feedback. There is no response. They are treated like a manual slave who's extending and helping you in extra. So that shift has to change because the industry has to understand if you are not looking after your people, people are not coming to you. That's for sure. Okay. The Job Plus, my portal, got launched on 14th of April. And I was telling Jibin, I've got 520 positions listed on my website and I have no people to do it. So, so I'm going back into educating the kids to come back to the mainstream.
Rian, just to reiterate this point, Mr. Manoj Bhatia, a very dear friend of ours and your dad, was a Taj, and probably after the terrorist attack, the kind of recognition that the Taj employees got was something which was to rave about, and today that pride of being a Taj employee is something which brings in a lot of attrition rate down, at least for the IHCL. So would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's no doubt that there's pride when you work for a company that you're proud of, right? If you can align to the company's vision and what they're doing, there's no doubt that you're going to stay in the company longer. I'll give you my example, even though I'm outside of the hospitality industry. I've been with LinkedIn for over 4 years. I've received offers to work for other companies at higher pay packages, etc., but I haven't moved. Why? Primarily because of the culture that LinkedIn offers to me, right? And I think on the mental health bit as well, and on the employee engagement bit, I think the hospitality industry can take a leaf out of other industries and other sort of more specifically tech, etc. Why not consider offering, there are lots of benefits offered anyway. Why not consider offering kind of a therapist? Because the hours are extremely long. So that's one example that I can think of which other companies tend to do. So when you think about those things and quite simply put, why not ask your employees what they want? Of course, employees will typically say higher pay, the basic stuff, but if you dig a little bit deeper and you use the technology that's available, I mean, you'd be amazed to know that the technology that exists in India today to understand your employees is unbelievable. So if you do your research and you go and use platforms that help you understand your employees and then form trends on why people are leaving, why people are staying, then automatically you're going to become a smarter employer. You're automatically going to attract the right talent and retain the right talent. So absolutely on your point, sorry it was a bit winded, but that I didn't want to add that on the mental health bit as well.
So probably the culture and the ethics is something which brings forth this discussion to have, especially the salary scales is not something which is the only incentive. But a lot of our members today also feel that when an incentive program is rolled into the structure, it becomes a disincentive the moment that incentive is taken off. So how does this ethics and culture be inculcated into the team? How does Radisson work?
See, culture and ethics are really the DNA of an organization, right? And that's what helps not only to retain and grow the talent, but also to attract talent, right? So, see, an organization and an employee both have their career aspirations. The employee has a career aspiration, an organization has a business goal and a business objective. Work area is really that crossroad where both are meeting, and we have to create that kind of environment where the organization is achieving its objectives, and at the same time, the employee who is working in that organization is also achieving his or her career aspirations. So what is culture? Culture is basically a set of beliefs an organization has, and the leaders of that organization are actually demonstrating and living those beliefs in day-to-day working life, right? Culture is about treating your people well, taking care of them, having a very fair environment, mutual respect, an opportunity of giving equal opportunity to everyone. Are there opportunities of growth, learning, training, mentoring, culture of performance, and above all, I think one very important thing which creates the DNA and a culture of an organization is a culture of no nonsense, right? You have to really deal with any kind of unethical practices in a very stern way. So that's what culture is. At Radisson, our culture, our DNA is our set of beliefs. And how we really demonstrate this belief is through our 7 set of values, we call them. It's like one is about creating memorable moments for all stakeholders, every day, every time, everywhere. And that's what we are seeing in Natwar's feedback about his experience. It's about serving with yes I can attitude, yes I can service philosophy is part of our DNA. It's about growing talent, so we believe in growing talent because when the talent grows, the organization grows, right? So that's one of our belief. One of our belief is that we deal with every interactions with complete fairness and we establish trust in doing that. One of our belief is that anything and everything is possible. One of our belief is that we are many minds with one mindset that says that we are an organization which believes in diversity, but all of us are aligned to the common goal and objective of the organization. And above all, last but not the least, we really enjoy doing what we are doing. So we have fun in all that thing. So that's really is what creates a culture and a DNA of an organization.
So probably the knowledge transfer and the skill transfer from the top at your level goes down to the least denominator, which is probably the workers who are joining the organization anew with your induction programs and various sorts of HR tools that you have.
Yeah, it's primarily driven through the training and mentoring structure an organization has, and I can very proudly say that we have really been able to establish that kind of culture of learning, culture of development and culture of growth. I can very proudly say that on an average 70 to 80% of our internal movements at a GM level are happening through our internal talent pool, which actually speaks of the kind of learning and growth opportunities we have through our mentors who are also present in this room, who are playing a very important role in creating that kind of a culture.
So we'll shift to the last bucket of our discussion today, which is on development of HR, and probably the last 5 minutes I'll leave open for about 4 questions. So anybody who wants to ask any questions, please keep them framed up. We'll have space for only about 4 questions, and probably 12:15 is the time that we've been given to close this session. So going on to the development bit, lifelong learning is something which is prime importance in keeping the employees retained and also develop them. What does it mean? Rian?
Yeah. So look, I think with learning, it's important to try and understand where we are as people. Right today, I think we're talking about the modern day learner. So where do people learn? They learn in the car when they're driving, on their phones, right? They learn via YouTube videos, via TEDx talks, right? So when you keep in mind your audience and who you are, why we learn? We're learning so we can stay relevant, so we can upskill ourselves. We've seen what the pandemic has done. We've seen how fast people have to sort of change and relearn how to do things, right? I think one thing that I've noticed with a lot of clients that we work with, learning is essentially, it's a stigma, it's classroom training, let's get it out of the way. Let's get people in a room, let them do their sort of certain number of hours and move on, right? But the idea is, if you're not constantly learning, I was very happy to hear that, there's a partnership with an edtech company to sort of upskill people a little bit more. I think that's the direction that we need to move in, because the partnership between hospitality and edtech, because edtech can bring in a lot of content in terms of relevancy. So what's relevant today may not be relevant 5 years from now. A lot of edtech companies have the benefit of data, right? Today, a lot of these companies can tell you what you should be learning today to be relevant 5 years from now. So keeping that in mind, I think it's important to understand your employees, understand your audience, and give them access to this. Also forms a link between retaining people, because they feel like you're invested in their growth. So that's a very, very important point as far as everybody is concerned.
So I think the point that comes out from this, Mr. Natwar, is about the value for life. And if we were to today look at the operational procedures and the standards that have been laid out, and how do we keep these standards relevant in today's times, if our members can understand a bit better about how this new development happens on skill sets, coming in operational standards and bringing in the kind of change that is visible by developing that person in the organization.
So I'm very passionate about creating a skill index value proposition for our employees. And I've been talking, Zubin is a great friend and my go-to guy when I discuss something which is transformative. So my intent is, and that's what we are working with at the job class, is to create a skill index value proposition for helping an employee to know where he stands vis-a-vis in the next 3 to 5 years. So I'll give you a small example. There is a cook who passes out from a kitchen training. He knows that he can make like Indian cuisine very well, skill set 1. He wants to upskill himself. He goes and learns probably five dishes, but he is the master of it. Then he says, I want to learn how to do biryani, 3 types of biryani which is available. And we say that his skill index value is 3 or 4 or 5. Just imagine if you can develop that kind of a system, it will revolutionize the way the industry will work for. Okay? So there is an upskilling happening, there is a skill certification happening, and I think it's an industry as a large will gain a lot. Okay? We are very humble to say that we are now talking to 2 or 3 hospitality companies where we would set up certain parameters, and we are hopefully that we should be out with this unique platform in the next 6 months.
Excellent. Mr. Yogendra, the mature use of technology in today's times and the career path that follows, is it possible for our standalone hoteliers to also follow this example that you have been doing at the Radisson?
Yes, I firmly believe that technology is extremely critical. And it's not only in guest-facing areas, but all across the ecosystem of hotel. It is important to have technological interventions, because the objective of technology to be part of our system is to improve efficiency, to improve overall experience and services we are offering, and at the same time deliver better business results. So it is possible to adapt this to even for standalone hotels and restaurants, because if these 3 key parameters of intervention are achieved, we should definitely look at that. But I just want to add one more thing here. Our purpose of introducing technology is not, the purpose is not to reduce manpower, right? The purpose is to have a better value proposition. And in that, if you're able to use your manpower or optimize your manpower to some other tasks, some other responsibilities, or transfer them to some other areas and functions and hotels, it is fine. But the purpose of technology should not be to reduce manpower.
We've seen that in a lot of front desks where the computer screen is between the guest and the receptionist, and it doesn't facilitate welcoming the guest to the property, but saying, I'm looking up your name and number, and that is a put off for a guest to say, where's the personal touch, where's your you attitude from the hospitality industry. So coming to the last point, Rian, employee feedback, employee engagement, how does the customer service and this journey from customer service to employees retention, how is that going to actually translate into reality today?
After we stay at hotel, we tend to get an email saying, how was your stay, rate your stay, sort of a feedback form, right? I'm not sure what goes on in the back end, how that feedback is collected. But typically when I talk to clients in India, what is feedback? It's a Google form, right? It's sort of again a check mark. Let's just send out something once a year to all our employees and hear back from them, and then we'll sort of get a couple of analysts on, say, an Excel sheet to find a couple of trends and submit it to our executive leadership. And then that'll get sort of stacked to weigh in and loss somewhere. unless somebody comes up with a specific complaint, which will then sort of be sent over to HR. There's, again, like I said, scope to use the lens that you have for customer service over to employee feedback. Invest in technologies. Today, there are tons of technology platforms out there that enable you and your HR teams to, at the click of a button, send out sort of questions that encourage employees to give you feedback about your culture, your workplace, your business, etc. And then you can form trends about why they're staying in your company, why they want to leave, or even there are some advanced technologies that give you indications of whether a certain section of employees in a certain geography is at risk of leaving. So you can become smarter to understand if you're a large chain, say for example like the Radisson, you can understand what is the risk of, say, of a certain section in Delhi leaving, etc. Right? I think it's important to think about technology because it's here today, it's here to stay, it's already rampant in other sectors. And I think hospitality should have a look at technology to sort of enable that, to sort of do a better job at retaining people.
Perfect. So, I guess before we start the question and answers, there was one exercise that was done at the HRAWI where the employment exchange, the CII and HRAWI got together and thought if the employment exchange has close to about 3 lakh people waiting for getting employed in this industry, and as an association we always have a requirement of कल तुम्हारे भाई को लेके आना जॉब पे हम लोग कहीं पे लगा देंगे, that kind of attitude. Today, if there is a skill set that is developed within the association's colleges, and we had about 5 colleges participating in that program, and we did call it the Hunar Se Rozgar, and as you all know, when you went into classification, you had one nomenclature which said number of employees under HSRT. Now, that was the initiative that we had taken at HRAWI, took it to FHRAI, and then we went into the National Council, we went with the Skill Development Ministry and sold them this program to say, why only have people who are from the catering colleges? We can have part-time education for existing employees who can go back to the colleges and get specific training in their own department, come back to the industry and start working. Even refresher programs, and that entire thing went on to about 10,000 crores of budget that the central government allocated just for the HSRT program. So, leaving on that note, we'll open this session for questions and answers. Yes, Mr. Bhatia, let the IPP come in before the President, he's senior to you. Yes, Sherry?
I have two questions. I have 2 questions. One is, the perspective of transferable skills which hospitality professionals usually have. Which sectors are attracting talent with these skills and how hospitality industry needs to address this? That's the question number 1. And the question number 2 is the role of service charge in attracting talent.
Would like to answer?
Let's repeat the first one.
Just repeat the first question,
First part of the question.
The perspective on transferable skills which the hospitality professionals have. Which sectors are attracting talent with these skills and how hospitality industry can need to address this?
Sir, in my mind, every sector which is moving into service is attracting hospitality talent, number 1. Your biggest threat will come from the facility management services, which are ramping up. So in our projection, the FMS business will be the single largest attractor of hospitality talent to their own base. So we are looking at about 8 million. So just to give you a thumb rule, for every 100 square meter of floor space which FMS requires, they require 1 person. So you can imagine the number of commercial buildings which are coming into the country. We're not taking into account the airports, which are now becoming a specific industry itself. Retail, you name a thing. I think so. We guys are the givers to the other industry. And we have to equip ourselves to train more and more people, and which is specific to skills.
That answers your question, Sherry?
Yeah, I just want to add.
May I add something over there, please? Just to that point.
Go ahead.
So I was actually looking at this data, some data on LinkedIn as the question was being answered, and I've actually noticed that, again, in the last year, and this could be specific more to sort of white collar and one level below, but lots of hospitality is actually moved into IT and computer software, right? And I'm guessing that to address that, I'm guessing what we have to do is look at what companies in that sector are doing, how they're attracting talent, why are people staying in those industries, and then maybe mimic some of those behaviors in hospitality.
Perfect. Yes, President sir.
Yeah. So this issue was definitely touched upon by you guys, but I want to bring this issue about how we are not treating our employees. In the parliament recently, in fact, after the pandemic, a question was raised as to how many number, in fact, the specific query which FHRAI received was that students were being made to work for about 14 to 15 hours. Given that fact, and how our entire setup of general managers are attuned to, when somebody comes to intern or for industry training, he wants to make him work hard, and it's not just about spending the number of hours, it's about doing laborious job too. Now put this against the IHM intakes that have happened post-COVID. In the central exams that the IHM sold, out of the 19,000 applications pre-COVID, I think post-COVID there have been 13,000 applications. The admissions have dropped from 8,000 to about 6,500 last year. I think this really makes us worried. It's unskilled labor was a problem, but I think now we are facing a real problem of skilled labor, and we are also having a bigger problem of the policy makers really starting to looking at us from this perspective. We are the famous punching bags. So how do we really mitigate this problem? On one hand, you want somebody, in fact, we very often see emails coming from parents saying that my kid is working in so-and-so hotel and he's been working and he can't cope up with so many number of hours or in banquet. He wants to exit but he doesn't get a certificate. So although our people want students to be groomed or somebody who can be able to withstand the grind, but we need to create a balance now. How do we create a skilled workforce? How do we manage to get away from the eyes of the policy makers so that now they don't come down upon us? There's one more area to come down on us, and basically how do we mitigate this problem?
I'll take the first one of the scale. I don't think so. We are anyway concerned with what the government is doing. We are trying to create a new ecosystem with the companies, working across with them. The Tourism Scale Council is also a government-aided body. There are 360 training partners aligned IBM for the last 2 years. We went to them and said that we will ask the industry to invest with you. So this is a game-changing, disruptive, what we're trying to do. And just to let you know, India does not lie in the big cities. I think there is enough talent out. There are demand states, there are supply states. All we need to do is to come together, create a very strong demand forecasting, where we know exactly what skill is required, when it is required, okay, at what level it is required. As far as IHMs, I would not like to comment on that. I think so. Let Yogendra is the master blaster of Radisson, let him answer that.
Alright, so firstly about the gap. Optimistically, I will say that it's little short term. It's an impact of last 2 years, how the industry has really gone through a very, very tough time. So optimistically, I think it will come back strongly as we are growing and we are opening immense opportunities of employment all across. But what is important is, and especially for GMs and senior leaders who are sitting and are running the business, it's important that we sensitize ourselves with the generation we are handling, right? I think we take great pride in sharing that I can work for 18 hours. I've not gone home for 2 months. I've not seen my kids for last so many weeks. I think today's generation is not like that, and we need to sensitize ourselves faster to it, because what used to work for us many years ago may not work for the generation we are handling at this point. So I think
perfectionists ruin it all the more, right?
Sorry?
Perfectionists, they ruin it all the more in becoming a workaholic.
Oh yes, yeah, that's another perspective. But I think it's important to sensitize ourselves and be ready for what our future generation wants. And I think somewhere, a very interesting concept I realized a couple of years back, which is important for us to sensitize ourselves. So a tool for us to sensitize for this generation is start doing reverse mentoring. Right? Sit with younger generation and tell them to give feedback about your own leadership. And it really works a lot. The new generation will really tell you what really works and what doesn't work. So that's a tool which will help all of us in sensitizing ourselves to the new generation.
I also think so the courses which were designed were for a certain period, they were all well intended to do that. We need to take a deep dive, sit with the industry. Just to give you an idea, our EdTech course will give the ROI to a student in exactly 3 months. Okay, so what he's investing, he will receive it back. So, and Yogendra said very rightly, the kids of today are different. Okay, and I'll give you an example. My daughter is 21. She's just started working at the Ogres in the HR. And after 3 days, when she came to me and she says, Baba, I said, how's it going? She says, absolutely fine, but I'm not looking at a permanent job. I flipped. I said, it's 5 days and you're telling me. So that's the new generation. Okay, and I think so. Our industry is great. We love what we do, and I think so we have to love our people back. That's simply what I think so.
True. That's the bottom line. Time for last 2 questions, please. Yes.
Yeah. In fact, I've been listening to this conversation. I'm here just to give some comments on certain matters that was raised here.
So you also have the hat of regional director as well as the principal of the Bangalore College.
And also recently I was the principal of the IHM Chennai also, and also on the board of governors of all the 4 IHMs in the region. So what I would like to comment on a couple of statements that you had made. One is, as part of this CBSP, the capacity building program, at least in the region, we are reaching out to the hotels in the tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Okay, the urban hotels somehow manage to attract talent, but the smaller hotels don't get. So I'll just tell you, a couple of days from now, a hotel in Shirdi approached us. It said, sir, we have 71 people, everybody had gone back after the pandemic, they're coming back. So we are putting the skill testing, which is that skill certification course. So they have kind of the IHM Mumbai, I convinced them, the teachers to go there and do that, so that at least they fill this gap at a lower level. Of course, management levels stuff is coming out from the IHMs. So untrained children, that we are trying to look at that. And then the same thing happened in Bhuj, where a hotel said that I don't have. So we sent people from the staff, the faculty from IHM Ahmedabad to train around 60 students, like all the hotels pulled together. So what my appeal is, the hotel, in case it feels that at the tier 1, tier 2 cities where they are able to get talent skills, there is this scheme which is available and it is free, no cost to the hotel. In fact, the government pays to the trainees also. That is one thing which I wanted to highlight, and if HRAI is there, I can convince all our IHMs to kind of push this and at least fill this gap there. And now I will also speak for IHM Bangalore, especially when you said about the training when the IT children go of IT. Initially what used to happen is the colleges used to forget the kids once they left the college for 6 months, no feedback. So this year I'm kind of ensuring that let the HODs speak to the HR managers where they are there, at least once a month or to see how the children are faring, because we are hearing one side only the students telling about the conditions, but we also want to know. So we have asked them at least in Bangalore colleges, you go visit the college at least once, and if it is outside Bangalore, do a Zoom call or something, take a feedback so that it is a two-way process, and there is also some watch over the children that the college is watching, and our responsibility is not absolved just because sending them to IT. This is something.
RD sir, one point of observation was how does the fraternity get updated, because the students are updated, the teachers are obsolete. So how does that happen?
No, see, for the teachers at this point, as you said, you spoke about the syllabus, etc. So now what we are trying to do is, at least I am speaking for one college, not for the whole. We are trying to invite the industry to come and take classes. Just yesterday, I told the chief engineer of the ITC Welcome of Vadodara to fly to Bombay to teach, because hotel engineering is something which is very skilled, and none of those faculty is an engineer. He just teaches what is there. And today, as you said, the syllabus also needs revamp. So that is how we are trying to skill. When we see talent outside, for example, from Goa, I flew in a chef who was a Japanese specialist to just take a class too. So that is how we are trying to see how we can get this gap filled up. And we should not only look at this 3-year courses, there are diploma students and there are craft course students also. So we can try, and they are also looking for employment. So our, from the government side, the idea is that how to kind of get this done. I think slowly we will have to kind of work very closely with the industry. Otherwise, standalone, the institutes will not be able to kind of fulfill. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Venkatesh. One last question I think we have time for. Yes, guys.
Paramjit from Hotel Samrat. Sir, I've been a hotelier for last 50 years, and I've seen the staff coming in from the 70s and the 80s, and now in the 20s. They are different, but my mindset may be stuck in the 70s or 80s or 90s. So there is a big demographic difference or change or between the young and the old. I think someone even mentioned about the generational gap. So is this restricted specifically to our industry, or are we still in that same old mold? I think Rian would be able to more identify and tell us what's happening, what are the new generation, and how we the employers are stuck up. Because we are small hoteliers, there's a huge out there, small hoteliers out there who are not classified. The industry is a very large industry. Maybe we are right here focused on maybe 4-star, 5-star hotel who have HR professionals. But out there, look at the larger industry, what is happening out there, and how do we connect with this, and how do we, because it's all coming down to how do we retain our staff, how do we treat them well, how do we understand them, which we are lacking right now. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Sure. So I'll put you at ease to say that it's not just in the hospitality industry, but this generational gap happens every generation, right? The one suggestion that I would add for you, sir, is, I was listening to an interesting talk by the founder of Alibaba, and he mentioned that he hires people who are younger than him and he learns from them. So I would encourage you to look at hiring somebody who's potentially in their mid-30s and who understands what's happening around that. That's one option. The second option is just, in today's day and age, right, even if you just go on to Google or LinkedIn, you get to learn so much about what people are doing, right? And there's so much, and I can speak from my perspective today. I don't want to work 80 nowadays, even if I was offered 2 or 3 times the amount of money that I'm making right now. I think today's generation is very, very clear about work-life balance. They want to be able to sort of, and today you can understand this from how the health tech space has taken off. Today there are companies in the health tech space that are valued in the billions, right? Because individuals are wearing all these bands, etc., tracking their sleep, tracking their exercise regimen, tracking their nutritional intake, right? It's all about sort of reducing your stress. So how can you ensure that your employees feel that way? And if they feel that it's not easy for you to go from point A to B directly, but if you can even ask them, what is the one thing you need right now that I can do for you to make you slightly happier? Whether it's via a Google form or etc. Of course, for smaller companies, it will be smaller hotels, it will be easier to collect information. But I think it starts with that, right? Understanding what your people want and then giving that to them. Every hotel is different, every place is different, but I think that's what it starts with.
Perfect. We have time for this session for an hour, and probably we are about just 5 minutes away. Mr. Advani, do we have time for one last question, or we just say thank you, bye-bye?
Oh, please, we are running short of time.
Thank you
so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The eminent panel, I request you to please stay on the stage, and I would really like to take this opportunity to thank the Maharaja Group, who were the sponsors for this Business Session 1. Thank you, Moderator Group. I think we need a huge round of applause for the group and also the MD. Thank you. Yeah, it was really, really wonderful. Some food for thought. Yes. I now call upon Mr. Takle, Senior Coordinator Nashik, to come and felicitate the panel, sir. Can we have the first? That was really wonderful. Thank you, panel. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rian. You will receive your felicitation soon. Thank you so much. With this, may I request all to make themselves warm and comfortable by sipping tea and coffee, sponsored by Radisson Blue Hotel and Spa Nashik, and get back on the seats in the next 15 minutes. But before that, I would really like to make an announcement which is really exciting, and that's for your spouses. That we have wine and cheese at the Gateway Hotel Amber Taj between 3:45 to 4:45 p.m. today, which is sponsored by Good Drop Wines and IDS. We would also like to see you and have your company for the dinner tonight, which is here, very much here at Radisson, with loads of exciting entertainment, which is sponsored by Centrum. So, see you guys, see you next 15 minutes. Thank you so much.